The first thing Elias noticed about the alien girl was how quiet she was. Not the empty kind of quiet, like a broken machine or a closed room. Her silence felt careful, as if she was always thinking 3 steps ahead before she moved or spoke. On Horizon Station, that made her stand out more than any bright skin color or strange anatomy ever could. Her name, according to the station registry, was Lyrian of the Valathi Concord. Elias had practiced saying it in his head many times, but he had never spoken it out loud. She never gave him the chance. Horizon Station floated between 3 star systems, built as a neutral research and diplomacy hub. Humans had joined the Galactic Alliance only 5 years ago, and Elias was one of the many specialists sent to prove that humanity belonged among older, stranger species. His role was simple on paper: xenolinguistics and cultural observation. In reality, it meant watching, listening, and trying very hard not to offend anyone by accident. That was harder than it sounded. Most aliens either talked too much or not at all. Lyrian fell into the second group, but with a difference. She worked in the observation wing, studying stellar microlife patterns, and Elias often found himself assigned to the same shifts. He noticed how she always chose the workstation 2 seats away from him. Never closer, never farther. At first, he assumed it was coincidence. Then, it kept happening. Every cycle, no matter when his schedule changed, she would appear a few minutes after he arrived. If he worked early, she worked early. If he stayed late, she stayed late. She never looked directly at him, but her body always angled in his direction, like a compass needle pulled by something quiet and strong. Elias told himself not to read into it. Humans had a bad reputation for that, jumping to conclusions, assuming emotions where none existed. Still, it was hard not to notice the small things. Sometimes, when he returned to his console, he would find objects neatly placed beside it, smooth mineral fragments, but from data crystals containing harmless star pattern recordings. Once, a carefully folded strip of translucent fabric dyed the soft blue color common to Valathi ceremonial wear. He reported none of it. He simply placed the items in a small drawer and kept working. Lyrian watched him from the corner of her vision, her heart racing in a way that felt painfully loud to her sensitive inner membranes. Every time he accepted the gifts without question, without rejection, her stress levels spiked and settled at the same time. Relief mixed with terror. In Valathi culture, what she was doing was very clear. To her people, gifts given repeatedly, without demand, were the first step of a bonding request, a way to say interest without forcing the other person to respond. Direct verbal confession was reserved for those with high social authority or deep emotional training. Lyrian had neither. She had been raised to observe, not to speak, to blend into systems, not disrupt them. And yet, from the moment she met the human, something inside her had gone wrong in the most confusing way. Elias laughed. The first time she heard it, she nearly dropped her analysis slate. It wasn't loud or sharp, just a soft sound, warm and real, when one of the station drones bumped gently into a wall. He apologized to the drone, even though it clearly didn't need it, and laughed at himself. Humans were strange like that. They spoke to machines. They smiled at empty rooms. They treated silence like something friendly instead of threatening. For Lyrian, raised in a culture where silence meant judgment, this was deeply unsettling and deeply comforting. She began adjusting her work patterns to be near him longer, matching his breathing rhythm without realizing it, slowing her movements so they aligned with his calm pace. These were subconscious Valathi behaviors, ancient and instinctive.
Elias noticed only that working near her made the station feel
easier. He found himself less tired at the end of shifts, more patient during long translation sessions. Once, when a senior delegate raised their voice in frustration, Elias felt an unexpected calm wash over him. Later, he realized Lyrian had been nearby, her presence like a steady background signal. Other species avoided humans. Too expressive, too loud, too emotionally unpredictable. Lyrian thought humans were brave. Not because they were strong, but because they showed their feelings openly, without shame.
Elias frowned when confused.
Smiled when pleased. Apologized when wrong. These were all things her people hid behind layers of ritual. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to be understood by him. The problem was that she had no idea how to say it. One cycle, Elias noticed something new. His personal data screen had been adjusted, not damaged, not hacked, simply improved. The layout had been optimized, colors softened, font spacing adjusted to reduce eye strain. It was subtle, almost invisible. Only someone who had been watching him closely would have known what to change. He turned slowly and looked toward Lyrian. She was pretending very hard to focus on her work. Her upper frill had gone a pale shade, a clear sign of embarrassment in Velethi's physiology. Elias didn't mention it. Instead, he quietly said, "Thanks."
That's actually really helpful.
The translation software carried his words across species boundaries, but the tone was unmistakable. Warm, genuine, no suspicion.
Whoa! No fear! Lyrian froze.
Her internal system surged with panic. He noticed. He accepted. He thanked her. That meant acknowledgement. In Valethi terms, acknowledgement meant the bond signal had been received, but he hadn't followed it with a response, which meant one of two things. Either he did not understand, or he was giving her space. Both possibilities terrified her. For Elias, it was much simpler. Someone had helped him. He said thank you. That was all. Still, he began paying more attention after that. Not because he suspected anything dramatic, but because he realized Lyrian might be trying to communicate in ways he didn't understand. He noticed how she mirrored his posture when he leaned back, how she paused her work when he paused, how her gifts became more personal over time, less ceremonial, more thoughtful. Once, she left a star chart highlighting a human-discovered anomaly. Another time, a data file showing Velethi music patterns that aligned closely with human emotional scales. Elias smiled at that one. She's sharing her culture, he thought. That's nice. The station AI noticed something else. Subtle stress indicators in Lyrian's bio-readings. Elevated emotional oscillation. Prolonged hesitation cycles. Patterns consistent with unexpressed intent. It logged the data quietly, uncertain how to classify it. No alarms were raised. That night cycle, Elias sat alone in the observation lounge, staring at a distant nebula. He felt oddly thoughtful, though he couldn't explain why. Horizon Station hummed around him, full of species trying to coexist without fully understanding each other. Somewhere behind him, Lyrian stood in the doorway. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind hundreds of times, planned gestures, prepared symbolic phrases. But now that the moment was here, everything collapsed into fear. She could turn back. She almost did. Then Elias spoke without turning around.
"Hey," he said gently. "You can come in."
"I don't mind." She stepped forward. Her presence settled the room like a held breath finally released. Elias turned and smiled at her. The same soft smile he gave to drones and mistakes in quiet moments. No expectations.
No pressure.
Just space. For Lyrian, that was more powerful than any declaration. She did not speak. She simply sat beside him, leaving the proper, respectful distance, and watched the stars. Two beings from different worlds, sharing silence for the first time. And neither of them realized just how important that silence was about to become. The next cycles passed in a strange, gentle way that Elias could not fully explain. After that quiet moment in the observation lounge, something between him and Lyrian had shifted, not in a dramatic way. There were no sudden conversations or clear confessions. Instead, the air around them felt softer, as if the station itself had decided to give them more room. Lyrian still did not speak much. In fact, she spoke even less than before. But she stayed closer now. When Elias worked, she chose the station beside him instead of 2 seats away. The distance was small, but to her it felt like stepping into open light. Elias noticed, but he did not comment. Humans were good at many things, but one of their quiet strengths was knowing when not to force words. Elias had learned that from years of working with other species. Silence was not always empty. Sometimes it was full of things still forming. He began to adjust in small ways. He slowed his movements when she was near, careful not to startle her. He lowered his voice during meetings. He made sure to leave space at shared tables, never crowding her. Miriam noticed everything. Her people were highly sensitive to patterns. Every repeated behavior carried meaning. To her, Elias's actions were not random kindness. They were responses. Gentle ones, but clear. Her stress levels decreased for the first time since she began her bonding signals. Still, fear remained. Velethi culture placed enormous weight on mutual recognition. To continue without confirmation was dangerous. It could lead to emotional imbalance, loss of social standing, even long-term isolation. Yet Elias remained unaware of the depth of what was happening, or so she believed. One cycle, the station hosted a multi-species symposium on cooperative research methods. Elias was required to attend, along with representatives from 12 different civilizations. Lyrian was not required to be there. She went anyway. She positioned herself at the back of the hall, half hidden behind taller delegates. Her frill dimmed slightly, a sign of anxiety. Public spaces were difficult for her, especially when emotional stakes were involved. Elias spotted her almost immediately. He did not wave. He did not call out. He simply adjusted his seat, so she had a clear line of sight to him. When he stood to speak during a discussion, he kept his tone calm and his movements measured. He spoke about human adaptability.
Humans, he said, are not the strongest or the oldest species here. But we survive because we listen. We learn. We change. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some species disliked that idea. Lyrian felt something tighten and loosen inside her at the same time. Listening, learning, changing. These were not Velethi's strengths, but they were Velethi needs. After the symposium, Elias found her waiting near the exit corridor. She looked as if she had been there for some time, pretending to study a wall display. "Did you like it?" he asked, keeping his voice casual. She hesitated. Speaking directly to him still felt like standing on the edge of a great drop. "Yes," she said finally. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "Your species communicates differently." He smiled. "We get that a lot." That was the longest conversation they had ever shared. For Lyrian, it was terrifying and exhilarating. For Elias, it was simply nice. After that, she began speaking more. Not much, but enough. Short observations, careful questions, quiet comments about shared tasks. Each word felt like a small victory. Elias responded with patience. He never rushed her, never finished her sentences, never laughed when she paused too long. Other species noticed. Whispers spread through Horizon Station. A Velethi researcher spending time with a human, sharing data, sitting together during breaks. Walking the long corridors, side by side. Some thought it was amusing. Others thought it was inappropriate. The station AI noticed something else. Human emotional markers showed increased stability when Lyrian was nearby. Stress recovery time shortened. Focus improved.
Sleep quality increased. The AI began running comparative simulations. Humans, it seemed, responded strongly to quiet companionship. Lyrian, meanwhile, struggled. Her internal state grew more complex each cycle. Her bonding signals had reached a stage where continuation without resolution became painful. Yet direct confession remained unthinkable. She tried a different approach. She prepared a cultural exchange file, a detailed explanation of Velethi relationship structures written in neutral academic language. No personal admission, no direct request. She left it on Elias's console. Elias opened it later that cycle. At first, he thought it was just another research document, but as he read, his expression changed. The material was personal, intimate in a way that went beyond biology. Velethi bonds were rare. Deep, long-lasting, built on emotional synchronization rather than physical traits. Initiated through gradual mutual adjustment. He frowned slightly. Some of the behaviors described felt familiar. Repeated proximity, gift-giving, mirroring routines, shared silence. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling.
Wait, he murmured. Is this?
He did not jump to conclusions. Humans had learned the hard way that assuming alien intent was dangerous, but the pattern was difficult to ignore. He thought of the gifts, the adjusted screen, the way Larian always waited for him before entering shared spaces. A slow warmth spread through his chest. Not excitement, not fear. Understanding. He did nothing immediately. That night, he requested additional cultural data. Quietly, privately. He wanted to be sure if he was wrong. Confronting her could cause serious harm. Lyrian watched him from across the lab, unaware of his research. Her frill pulsed with anxious color changes. She had revealed too much. If he rejected her now, it would confirm her deepest fears.
She considered withdrawing, reassigning,
leaving Horizon Station entirely. But when Elias looked up and met her eyes, he did not look confused or distant. He looked thoughtful and kind. The next cycle, he made a small change. When she arrived at the lab, he greeted her first. "Good morning, Lyrian," he said, pronouncing her name carefully. Her breath caught. No one ever used her name like that. Slowly, respectfully, as if it mattered.
"Good morning," she replied, her voice barely steady.
He gestured to the seat beside him, not casually, intentionally. She sat. They worked in silence for a long time, but it was a different silence now. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Full of things unsaid but acknowledged. At one point, Elias slid a data crystal toward her. "I read your file," he said gently. "Thank you for trusting me with it." Her frill flushed deep blue.
You are not distressed? She asked.
He shook his head.
No, I'm honored.
That word hit her harder than any rejection could have. Honored. She struggled to maintain composure. Veleti's emotional control protocols strained under the weight of relief and fear and hope. "I did not intend to cause confusion," she said carefully. "I know," Elias replied, "and I'm sorry if I missed something important before." He did not say more. He did not need to. They sat there, side by side, aware now that something real existed between them, something fragile, something powerful. Across the station, the AI updated its records. Human Velethi interaction classified as emotionally synchronized cooperative bonding potential. Probability of mutual benefit, high. Risk of harm, low. The AI flagged the case for observation. Curious, neither Elias nor Lyrian noticed. They were too busy learning how to share space with honesty. For the first time, Lyrian believed that she might not have to choose between her culture and her feelings. And for the first time, Elias realized that humanity's greatest strength might not be its adaptability alone, but its ability to make others feel safe enough to be themselves. The station lights dimmed as the cycle ended, and in that quiet glow, something new continued to grow. Slowly, carefully, and without force. The days after that quiet understanding were not easy for either of them. They were better, but harder at the same time. Now that Elias knew something important was happening, every action felt heavier. He did not want to misstep. He did not want to rush. He especially did not want to hurt Lyrian by acting like a human without thinking. Lyrian felt the change too. Before, her fear came from uncertainty. Now, it came from awareness. Mialis knew. He had not rejected her, but he had not accepted her either. In Velahai terms, this was a dangerous middle state. Still, she stayed. She stayed because every time he looked at her, there was care in his eyes. Care without ownership. Interest without pressure. To her people, that kind of restraint was rare. To humans, it was just respect. They continued working together. But now, there were more pauses, longer silences, moments where both seemed to wait for the other to act. One cycle, during a joint analysis task, their hands brushed while reaching for the same control panel. Lyrian froze completely. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Her frill flared bright blue. Her breathing quickened, and her internal temperature spiked. In Velatai physiology, physical contact during bonding phase was overwhelming. Elias noticed instantly. "I'm sorry," he said, pulling his hand back slowly. "That was my mistake." He turned his body slightly away, giving her space. Lyrian stared at him, stunned. He had noticed. He had understood. And instead of pushing forward, he had retreated. That moment changed something inside her. Later that cycle, she did something her people almost never did. She asked for help, not openly, not emotionally, but carefully, in the way she had been taught was safest. She submitted a request to the station's cultural liaison office, asking for a review of Velathi-human interaction protocols. The request was anonymous, but detailed enough to suggest personal concern. The office, overwhelmed and cautious, forwarded the request to the station AI. The AI analyzed it. Then it analyzed Elias. Then it analyzed Lyrian. The conclusion it reached was unusual. The AI scheduled a mandatory cultural mediation session. When Elias received the notice, his stomach tightened. Mandatory sessions usually meant someone had complained or a rule had been broken. Lyrian received the same notice and felt something close to panic. She had not meant for this. The mediation room was neutral in every possible way. Soft lighting. Adjustable gravity. Walls that shifted color to match emotional baselines. The AI's interface appeared between them, calm and unreadable. "This session is intended to prevent harm caused by cultural misunderstanding," the AI said. "You may speak freely." Neither of them spoke at first. Elias glanced at Lyrian, then back at the interface.
"I don't think anyone's been harmed," he said slowly. "But I do think we're
navigating something unfamiliar."
The AI processed his tone.
"Confirmed," it replied. "Emotional complexity detected." Lyrian's hands trembled slightly. She folded them together to steady herself. "I did not intend to create imbalance," she said quietly. "In my culture, my actions were appropriate, but I now understand that humans interpret them differently."
Elias turned to her fully.
"You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I just needed time to understand." The AI paused longer than usual before speaking. "Clarification requested," it said. "Are you both aware that Velati bonding signals have been present for an extended period?" Lyrian's frill flushed a deep, embarrassed blue. "Yes," she whispered. Elias took a breath. "Yes," he said as well. The AI adjusted the room's lighting, softening it further.
Then the purpose of this session, it said, is to establish consent boundaries and emotional safety. That word echoed in Lyrian's mind. Consent.
Belathi culture did not have a direct translation for it. Bonds were assumed once signals were exchanged. Choice existed, but it was rarely discussed openly. Elias spoke gently. "I care about you," he said, choosing his words carefully. "But I don't want to move forward unless you feel safe, and I don't want you to feel trapped by your customs." Lyrian looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time without fear clouding her senses. "You are different from what I expected," she said. "Humans are described as impulsive." He smiled a little. "We can be, but we're also very afraid of hurting people we care about." That honesty struck her deeply. The AI recorded the interaction silently. After the session, nothing dramatic happened. There was no official declaration, no announcement, no sudden change in behavior. And yet, everything felt different. They began walking together more often, no longer pretending it was coincidence. Lyrian allowed herself to sit closer, though still careful. Elias began sharing small personal stories, not deep confessions, just pieces of his life. His family, on Earth, his favorite, quiet places. Lyrian listened like each word was precious. One evening, Elias invited her to the human observation deck. It was designed to resemble open sky, a comfort space for species that felt confined. She hesitated, then agreed. They stood side by side, looking out at the stars. This time, the silence was lighter. "There's no expectation," Elias said, as if sensing her tension. "We can just be here." That was when Lyrian finally did something she had been too afraid to do. She asked a question. "In human terms," she said softly, "what are we?" Elias did not answer immediately. He thought about labels, about how dangerous they could be. "I think," he said, "we're two people choosing to understand each other. That's enough for now." Her frill shifted to a calm, steady glow. That answer gave her permission she did not know she needed. The station watched quietly as the bond grew. Other species began to notice the change in Lyrian. She spoke more during meetings. She held her posture differently. There was confidence where there had once been only caution. They noticed changes in Elias, too. He laughed more easily. He seemed more grounded. The AI updated its internal models again. Humans were proving something unexpected. They did not dominate bonds. They did not consume them. They allowed them to form naturally. For Lyrian, this was revolutionary. For Elias, it was just how he had always believed things should be. As the cycle ended, they sat together in the observation deck. Closer now, but not touching. The stars reflected softly in the curved glass. Lyrian felt fear still. But it no longer ruled her, and Elias felt something else growing alongside. Care. Hope. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. But for the first time, both believed it was something they could face together. The change did not stay private for long. On Horizon Station, nothing ever truly did. As Elias and Lyrian grew more comfortable together, others began to notice patterns. It started with small things. Lyrian no longer avoided shared spaces. She spoke during research briefings, her voice still soft but steady. She no longer positioned herself at the edges of rooms. Elias noticed it first during a council update meeting. She disagreed with a senior delegate. Not loudly, not rudely, but clearly. Several beings turned to look at her, surprised. Velatha researchers were known for silence, not challenge. Elias felt a quiet pride rise in him. He said nothing, but his posture shifted, just a little, as if supporting her without standing in front of her. Lyrian felt it, that steady presence. It helped her finish her thought. After the meeting, a Velathi elder approached her in a private corridor. His frill carried the faint markings of authority. "You are changing," he said. She lowered her gaze respectfully. "I am learning." "From the human," he observed. She hesitated, then nodded. This was dangerous territory. Velethi society valued harmony above individual desire. Bonds with outsiders were rare and closely watched.
"The Alliance will notice," the Elder warned. "They already question humanity's influence." Lyrian's chest tightened.
Fear returned, sharp and familiar. "I do not feel influenced," she said carefully.
"I feel understood."
The Elder studied her for a long moment. "That," he said quietly, "may be more disruptive than influence." Word spread faster after that. Other species began requesting reports on human interaction styles. Not official ones, quiet questions. Curiosity masked as concern. The station AI received an unusual number of inquiries. Humans, it seemed, were changing people. Not through control, through patience. A multi-species cultural review was scheduled. Elias received the notice and frowned. Reviews were rarely good news. They often meant restrictions, guidelines, warnings. Lyran received the same notice and felt her internal balance tilt dangerously. She feared this was the moment everything would be taken from her. They met before the review, standing in a quiet maintenance corridor where few species passed. "I don't want you to feel pressured," Elias said gently.
"If this becomes too much, we can slow down."
She looked at him, really looked at him, and something inside her hardened. Not with fear, but with resolve. "I do not wish to withdraw," she said. "I wish to continue, but I do not know how to protect what we are." Elias nodded slowly.
"Then we face it honestly," he said. "Together." The review chamber was larger than the mediation room had been.
Representatives from 8 species attended, along with cultural analysts and observers. The AI moderated again, its presence calm but firm. "The purpose of this review," the AI announced, "is to assess the impact of cross-species emotional bonding on station stability." Elias felt tension ripple through the room at the word bonding. Lyrian sat very still beside him, her hands folded tightly. Her frail held a controlled, neutral tone, but inside she was shaking. A delegate from an older species spoke first.
"Humans are emotionally contagious," they said. "Their behaviors bypass traditional bonding protocols."
"This presents a risk." Another delegate nodded. "They create attachments without clear structure." Elias took a breath.
"With respect," he said, "we don't create attachments. We allow them."
"There's a difference," some murmured. Others looked skeptical. Lyrian felt the weight of the room press down on her. This was her people's fear made real. That closeness without structure led to chaos. The AI turned to her. "Lyrian of the Velethi Concord," it said. "Do you feel coerced, influenced, or diminished by this interaction?"
Her throat tightened. This was the moment.
If she answered wrong, the AI could recommend separation. Reassignment. Restriction. She looked at Elias. He did not nod. He did not signal. He did not try to guide her answer. He trusted her. That trust gave her courage she had never known she possessed. "No," she said, clearly. "I feel expanded." The room went very quiet. "Explain," the AI requested. She straightened her posture. "In my culture, bonds are controlled to prevent instability. But I have learned that control can also prevent growth. The human does not demand. He waits. He listens. That has allowed me to choose freely." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Elias felt his chest tighten with emotion, but he remained still. The AI processed her words for a long moment.
"Human Elias," it said. "Do you acknowledge the responsibility this bond creates?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation.
"And I accept it only if it remains mutual and safe." The AI's response came slower than usual. "Conclusion," it said. "Human bonding behavior demonstrates high emotional containment, consent awareness, and adaptive restraint." A few delegates looked startled. "Recommendation," the AI continued. "No separation required. Further study advised." Lyrian felt something release inside her that she had been holding since childhood. They were not being torn apart. After the review, the station felt different. People looked at them differently. Not with suspicion. With curiosity. Some species approached Elias with cautious questions. Others observed Lyrian, noting her growing confidence. She was invited to speak at a research panel. She accepted. Elias watched from the audience as she spoke calmly about Velethi perception models. She did not rush. She did not hide. She was radiant in her own quiet way. Later, as they walked together through the long, curved hallway that overlooked the stars, Lyrian slowed her steps. "In my culture," she said softly, "what we are doing would be considered irreversible." He turned to face her fully. "Do you feel trapped?" he asked. "No," she said quickly. "I feel chosen, but I wanted you to know the weight of it." He nodded. "Thank you for trusting me with that," he said. "We can move at your pace. Always." She hesitated, then did something small but brave. She moved closer. Not touching, but close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. That was enough. The station lights dimmed for the cycle's end. The stars outside shimmered, distant and patient. Across Horizon Station, the AI updated its core cultural models. Humans were now classified differently, not as disruptors, but as stabilizers of emotional complexity. For Lyrian, the future no longer felt like a narrow path she had to follow carefully. It felt wide, and for the first time in her life, she was not afraid of where it might lead. The station changed slowly after that review, the way large things always do. There were no announcements, no banners, no official declarations carved into records for others to study later. Instead, Horizon Station adjusted through small choices made by many people. Doors stayed open longer. Meetings allowed more pauses. Cultural briefings added new footnotes about emotional pacing and consent. Humans were mentioned more often. Elias noticed it during his work first. Other researchers began asking him questions that had nothing to do with language or data. "How do you know when to wait?" one asked.
"What do you do when you don't understand someone?" asked another.
Elias answered honestly, every time. "I listen," he said. "And when I'm not sure, I don't assume." For many species, that answer was unsettling. For Lyrian, it was familiar. She and Elias continued to spend time together, still careful, still slow. They shared meals now, choosing quiet corners where conversation could come and go without pressure. Sometimes they talked about research, sometimes about memories, sometimes about nothing at all. The bond between them deepened without force. Lyrian noticed something strange happening inside herself. The fear that once guided every choice began to loosen its hold. She still felt it, but it no longer decided for her. When she spoke because she wanted to, not because she calculated safety. That freedom was intoxicating. It also frightened her. One cycle. She requested leave from her research duties. The decision surprised even her. Velethi did not step away from purpose easily. Elias found her in the observation deck, staring out at a slow-moving star cluster. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I am uncertain," she replied. He nodded. "Want to tell me about it?" She took a long moment before answering. "In my culture," she said, "long-term bonds change everything. Career paths, social roles, expectations. I have never allowed myself to imagine those changes.
And now, Elias asked. And now, she said quietly, I cannot stop imagining them.
There was no fear in her voice, only honesty. Elias felt a quiet weight settle in his chest. This was not a moment for reassurance alone. It was a moment for truth. I don't want to take anything away from you, he said. I don't want to be the reason you lose parts of yourself. She turned to him fully.
You are not taking, she said. You are offering.
That is the difference.
Her words stayed with him. Later that cycle, Elias made a choice of his own.
He submitted a formal request to Earth Command, asking for extended station placement and cross-cultural research authorization. It was a risk. Humans were still new to the Alliance, still under scrutiny. But the request was approved faster than expected. The reason given was simple. Human emotional restraint had been officially classified as a valuable diplomatic asset. When Elias told Illyrian, she did not react immediately. She sat very still, processing. You are choosing to stay? She said. Yes, he replied. Not because I have to, because I want to. Her frill shifted to a soft, steady glow. That night, something important happened. They were sitting together in the quiet lounge, the same one where they had first shared silence. The lights were low. The station hummed gently around them.
Lyrian took a breath. In Velify culture, she said slowly, the final stage of bonding requires a direct statement.
It is considered the most dangerous act. Elias felt his heart begin to beat faster, but he stayed calm.
You don't have to say anything you're not ready to, he said. I know, she replied.
That is why I can say it now. She turned toward him, her movements deliberate but trembling. I wish to form a mutual bond with you, she said.
Freely, without obligation.
With the understanding that either of us may step away if harm arises.
The room seemed to hold its breath.
Elias did not answer right away, not because he was unsure, but because he understood the weight of what she had done. He reached out slowly, stopping short, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She did not. I accept, he said quietly, with the same terms, with care.
Lyrian felt something inside her settle into place, like a long-held tension finally released.
There was no dramatic reaction, no overwhelming surge, just peace they did not touch. They did not need to. The bond had been spoken into existence, clear and mutual. Across the station, the AI registered the moment. Bond formation confirmed. Consent verified. Emotional stability maintained. Risk assessment minimal. For the first time since its activation, the AI adjusted its core assumptions about interspecies connection. Weeks passed. Life continued. But now, when Lyrian walked through the station, she did so with her head held a little higher. When she spoke, others listened. Not because of Elias, but because of who she had become. Elias noticed that people no longer warned him about alien misunderstandings. Instead, they asked him to help mediate their own. Humans began receiving more invitations to cultural exchanges. A reputation spread quietly through the Alliance. Humans did not rush. They waited. They did not claim. They asked. For a galaxy built on rigid protocols and ancient fears, this was revolutionary. One evening, Elias and Lyrian stood together at the edge of the station's outer ring, watching distant ships move like slow thoughts through space.
Do you regret it? Elias asked softly. No, she said immediately.
Do you? He smiled. Not for a second. She considered that. In my culture, she said, love is considered dangerous because it cannot be controlled. He nodded. In mine, love is dangerous for the same reason. We just decided it was worth the risk. She leaned slightly closer. Not touching, just enough. That closeness was now natural. As the station lights dimmed and the stars brightened, Horizon Station continued its quiet work as a bridge between worlds. And somewhere, in its endless corridors, a simple truth took root. Humanity did not conquer the stars with strength or speed. They did it by making space. Space for fear. Space for choice. Space for those who had never been brave enough to speak. Until someone, finally, listened. And in that space, something beautiful had grown.